It's Thursday again, tell everybody to lock in, grab some popcorn, a drink, and go and throw your AirPods in. It's the 1 hour show, constantly speaking facts. Bulletproof stats are always shooting from Matt. And when it comes to Kyle, you getting numbers and style. Jake is gonna educate you, he has that knowledge on file. Players, step your game up, don't be sluggish or lazy. Or Jimmy J might hit you with a shaky baby. Catch him on YouTube or any podcast platform. Breaking all the news down like Shaq does the backboards. No hot takes, this is where the hottest debate's at. Now kick your feet up, cause it's time for straight facts.
What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to Straight Facts, a sports show that educates and entertains. Brought to you by the Up On Game Presents Network. Make sure y'all are getting that. Up On Game Presents, or anywhere you get your podcast, like, follow, and subscribe. Apple, Spotify, you know what they do over there at Up On Game and iHeart. But the gang is back together, full squad. My guys, Jake Galley and Stat Matt Robinson. I'm your boy, Jimmy J. Guys, we said last week that we were going to put the NBA or the NFL on the shelf for a little bit and kind of let the wild card race and the playoff race decide itself over there in the NFL. So we're all NBA today in this podcast, but it's good because we got to check back in with the NBA for a little bit. But before we do, how we doing? How's the week been? How was the holidays and the new year and everything?
It's good. Like you said, I'm glad to be back at full strength here. Get to take a little peek at the NBA side of things, which can get lost in the shuffle. So yeah, I mean, obviously some stuff happened this week. I'm assuming we'll probably hit on it at the buzzer, but saw some good news come out today. So feeling relatively good on this late recording. Usually we're a little earlier than this.
We also got, we don't really talk about it much, but we got two great college football playoff games.
Yeah,
on New Year's Eve, which are really exciting.
Absolutely. Ohio State missing a kick literally as the clock struck midnight is going to be one of it's going to be a moment for me. It's going to be a moment for me for a very long time. But Jake, I'm actually glad that you did mention that because I think we'd be remiss a little bit if we kind of just started talking before we kind of recognized Damar Hamlin and just everything that's happened with him and the Buffalo Bills. So I know you guys would echo this sentiment, but just, on behalf of Straight Facts and Up On Game Presents, just want to extend our condolences to Damar and his family. We're thinking about you. We're praying about you. And like you also said, Jake, we got great news today that he's been responsive. He's been awake. He's actually been communicating and holding some close members tight. So just an unbelievable tragedy what happened. We don't have to break it down too much before we get into it, but yeah, just an unbelievable tragedy what happened to Damar, but it's great that he's fighting. So if you guys got anything to say before we get into it, you guys go ahead.
The only thing I'll say, so ironically, you guys know I do the Dynasty Fantasy Football League. In that league, we play individual defensive players. And going into Monday night, had the game wrapped up. I am going to be the champion. 50
Congrats.
Points up, but one of the two players who I was playing against, one of them was Damar Hamlin. So I think what I'm going to do is probably take half of the winnings and donate it to his toy drive. I don't know if you guys saw, raised millions of dollars.
Every time I look at it, they add $1 million. It was like 2 million, 3 million, 4 million.
Yeah, well, I'm going to do my
Bills
best.
Mafia, you know what they do.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm going to donate to the cause, but just very, very glad to hear he's doing okay. Puts things in perspective very quickly.
Yeah. That's awesome. All right, so we will attempt to, always, kind of keep Damar in our thoughts and in our prayers, but we'll attempt to move on and talk about other things. As we said, we're putting the NFL on the shelf and getting back to the NBA. And something we got to address right now, because we can't keep watching all this craziness happening in the NBA right now. Like scoring on top of scoring, buckets on top of buckets, points on top of points. We can't keep watching it happen without really addressing it and talking about the state of scoring in the NBA. So for the first time in a long time, we got a fact straight at you. So right now, since the 1969-1970 season, it's the highest points per game in the NBA since then, but on 11 less shots and 10 less free throws per game than last year. It's also the highest offensive rating ever in the NBA. So before we even break it down, Stat Matt's got a little smirk on his face because this stats galore, like numbers,
Yeah.
stats, statistics. The more scoring, the more numbers. Like talk about it in an overall sense, stat Matt. Like the scoring in the NBA, but without getting into it too much. Like the scoring in the NBA, like what's going on, man?
Basically, I honestly think it's pretty simple. The players are just way too good. They're just making shots that were unfathomable 15 years ago. Like the ridiculous Kobe shots that he would make, like the famous like ridiculous contested shots. Like there's like 15 players in the league that can make them because they saw Kobe growing up making them and said, I want to do that too. So people are just way too good at shot making. I think people like have this perception that like people aren't trying on defense. People haven't tried on defense ever since like the last team that really tried on defense for a full season was like the Pistons run in the mid 2000s. Like this has been a thing for a while. But
some of those Bulls teams too.
I'm about to say we're doing, but I get his point.
Yeah, but these like I mean like over like a consistent basis, like, and it's just people are way too good at basketball, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think it's a little
great thing.
I think it's a little too much, but
I think the game has evolved. I do think sometimes you do get a lack of defense in the dog days, and I don't think it's a coincidence that all these big scoring outbursts are happening now in the dog days of late December and January, right before the All-Star break in the NBA. But I do think it's a little bit of both, a combination of like when the defense lapses, NBA players are so good nowadays that if a slight lapse in defense happens, it means a scoring outburst is going to happen. Not a good game, not a 30-point game. If you don't try tonight, Sadiq Bey is going to give you 50. Like if you don't try tonight, Anthony Simons is going to give you 49. Like that's crazy. That's what today's NBA. If you don't try, Larry Market is going to give you 40. Like that's what today's NBA is.
That's straight up.
And that's to your point, Matt. Like that's what we weren't used to 15 years ago. Like Donyell Marshall wasn't going to give me 40 if I didn't try 15 years ago.
Yeah. Larry Hughes on you or something.
You know,
Larry Hughes had some years, but
if you don't try this year, Jordan Clarkson gonna give you 55. Like that's the evolution of basketball. That's just I think that's what we're watching is a little bit of the evolution of basketball.
Right. And to that evolution point, like think about it. It's not, I mean, a lot of the people who we're naming are guards or shot takers, but even beyond that, the players who really have no right being or no need to be skilled, like a lot of the bigs now have some sort of a handle, can pass the ball, like can make high level these reads where realistically like
should have no business doing.
Back in the 90s, it's like, dude, set the screen and roll to the basket and get out of my way. Like, so I and it goes a little deeper than that. It is that it's that players are incredibly talented. But as we'll eventually get to, there were a couple of rule changes in the offseason that have really popped the top off of the fast break and transition this year. It makes it tougher to defend. But yeah, and because of that, a lot of the top players who are already the best are just profiting, even more.
Or Glenn, before we get to those scoring outbursts, I do want to kind of hit on that very last point that you just made, the transition point, because I think it's going to lead everybody into saying like, oh, probably more fouls being drawn, more, getting more points at the line. But remember when I said 11 less shots, 10 less free throws per game. So does this mean that the scoring is more efficient too? Like it's not drawing more fouls and stuff.
In 1970, there wasn't a three-pointer. Teams are averaging 12 makes per game from three. So that's literally 12 extra points because they didn't have that option back then.
But I think that's in a team sense, though. It's a great point, but that's in a team sense, though. But what about in an individual sense? When we break it down like micro level, like it's not people just spamming the free throw line. Like these are shots going in from the field, right? Then it's leading to more scoring.
And for sure, but it is easier to make your shots from the field when Jerry West is getting a pass protection while he's trying to drive to the rim as they hand check him.
True.
And players today have to deal with much, much less. And not only are they dealing with less, but like it keeps trending downhill for the defense. Like you're getting everything you think that you can maybe hang your hat on. They're taking them down chip by chip. And I forget which coach mentioned it, but basically said like the hardest thing to do as a coach is to figure out how to defend on like a nightly basis. And I feel them. It is difficult.
And
Preaching defense.
And from a stats point of view, I think it's impossible to evaluate defense from a statistical advanced stats point of view, because if you just, I don't want to just be like a Jokic hate thing, but like the fact that like Raptor has Jokic as like the second best defender in the league is just like, okay, there's something broken in advanced defensive metrics if you look at Jokic and think he's the second best defender in the league.
We might need a stat mat where the stats lie, or don't let the stats lie to you about Raptor, whatever the hell it is, and wherever the hell it's got Jokic.
No, and even like stuff like defensive box plus minus, which usually is a pretty good indicator. Like if you watch Jokic, you know he's the weak link. And a lot of you can say like really good offense creates good defense because a set defense is better than a defense off a miss. So there's that. But there also has to just be like, we watch and like Jokic is fantastic, but we know his defense is below average.
It's Pooty, right? Like we know it's Pooty. Like watch basketball, and what makes me mad, I'm getting my head up myself a little bit, but what makes me mad when people try to make, especially Jokic's defense better than it is he is too good of a basketball player elsewhere for you to try to make up something that he's good at. He doesn't need that.
Yeah.
He's
no one pretended Steph was a really good defender.
He doesn't need it.
No
one, Trae Young, no one cares. Like no one brings up how good Trae. He doesn't need it. Like Jokic won 2 MVPs, not on defense, dog. Like not just simply put. No, if you eliminated that half of the floor, he'd still have 2 MVPs. Like that's just truth. So like I don't need to inflate his defensive numbers. To be honest, I can't tell you the last time I really scrubbed through Jokic's defensive numbers. I'm sorry that you guys have to do that for this podcast, to be honest, because that's not where we look at his game. So I don't need to do that. But what we do look at Jokic's game is offense, and he's been a part of these scoring barrages that have happened in the NBA. And I want to go through them a little bit, and then at the end, I want us to kind of like talk and deliberate round table about which one has been either the best in our opinion or just the most impressive, most noteworthy, like which one has caught our attention. So the first one we'll do is Giannis, because this brother has been going stupid. He's been the first player since Kareem in 1972 to drop 200 plus points, 80 plus rebounds, and 30 plus assists over a 5-game span. These last 5 games, 30, 21, and 10, 55, 10, and 7, 43, 20, and 5, 45, 22, and 7, 27, 9, and 3 on an off night. I just ran through like 2K numbers. Like I just ran through video game type numbers in that stretch, like to go damn near 3 straight 45 and 20 games, 50 and 10 games like this is ridiculous. It resulting in wins too, by the way. Let's not overlook the most important part of these stats is those resulting in wins. So Jake, talk to me about the Greek freak freaking out, man.
It really is incredible to watch, because I think coming into the league, I don't think anyone really knew what Giannis was going to be. And then when he first started to become a star, I think everyone had the idea, and mainly because he was playing point guard, but like that he was going to be a distributing type. I think it was Jason Kidd who had him playing kind of like the guard there. Mm-hmm. And since then, he really has, I mean, this isn't new news. It's a couple years old, but like, look at these numbers: 43 and 20, 45 and 22, 30 and 21. If I told you that was Shaq, you'd believe me. It is insane that he is able to affect basically whatever facet of the game he needs to affect in order to keep his team in the game. And, you know, we'll talk about it, I think, probably a little longer in this next section, but the take fouls, like taking away take fouls, is a good thing for the fan, is a horrendous thing for any NBA defense who already couldn't guard Giannis. Now you can't even get yourself back and get set. Like, it's just going to be showtime. And that's, with a lot of these guys, why we're seeing the numbers. And it's probably a good thing for the fandom of the NBA that guys score a ton. And that's what we're seeing with Giannis and the rest of these guys that we're about to go through.
Yeah, Giannis has been like he's been the best player in the NBA ever since the 2 years ago, in my opinion, when he led the Bucks to the finals last year. He was fantastic, and this year he's the best player in the NBA. And I think people are reluctant to say that he is, and I'm not, because people like say, oh, why isn't he talking about? But he doesn't get like the automatic like, oh my god, like he's unbelievable until like you actually look through his numbers. Because I've been saying about this for a while, and it's been a blessing for NBA fans that the Bucks have been pretty injured, because like Giannis is just having to do like a full carry job,
takeover mode, yes,
like
full
kind of like
mode.
Harden and Houston some of those years.
Luka,
and it's like we're getting incredible performances because of it.
That's why I wanted to highlight that these are wins, because you could do a lot of these, like if these were losses, they would be like Luka type numbers where you're like, okay, great numbers, but what's the cost? What are they resulting in?
Yeah, they played back-to-back games against the Wizards. He was inactive. They lost by 23. The Wizards stink. Mm-hmm. He plays the next game. He has 55, 10, and 7, and they only win by 10. Like he's forced to put up these numbers, and it's just
not having your running mate, not having your second and third best player kind of going in and out of the lineup of Drew Holiday and Brook Lopez. They started the year without Brook Lopez. Does that kind of hurt them getting off to a start? But it's crazy what Giannis is doing, and why it's so dominant to me is when he was starting his ascension, he was starting to get good, starting to become a star in the NBA. Everyone was noticing how well he was doing, but it was saying like his style of play isn't sustainable. You heard James Harden kind of throw a little jab at him in one of the All-Star weekends, right? Like, it's no skill. He just kind of, lowers his head and goes to the rim. Everyone's like, he's going to need to develop skill. He's going to need to develop some kind of handle, some kind of jump shot, some kind of, working offense in a half court to get better. And he did for a little bit. It got improved, or, it got a little better. But it's not anywhere above average. It's not anywhere, amazing. And I think, it started a little ascension. It started to get better. But Giannis is still, like, he still has that dominance about him. He still has that go through you about his offense, the footwork. But it's the technique is improved. The footwork is improved. The shot selection is improved. The willingness to distribute and how he gets the balls to his teammates, that's improved. But I think it's so impressive because, he didn't really change his game style as much as people suggested that he should. He just kind of polished it more. And Matt, I agree with you. I think he's the best player on the planet right now. Like, as of right now, today, I think Giannis. Sorry, Mike got confused, but it's showing. Like, it's we're almost getting desensitized to it. Like, he's been this for the last couple of years.
And Giannis is more than I think any other player of these players we're about to mention. When he lights up your team, you're never mad at your defense. You're just like, what the heck are we supposed to do?
Yeah, what are you supposed to do with that?
Well, like you're not even mad. It's just like we can't do anything. Like, so you get like annoyed because like it's unfair. And, I think that's just the perfect tell of dominance. Like you're upset because you think it's unfair, and you're like a 5-year-old toddler losing to like your big brother in basketball because he's bigger and blocks your shot.
Yeah, like he just dribbles around you. Yeah. Like when he's in trans, you talk about how unstoppable. He's the most unstoppable player in transition, to me, maybe of all time. You know what I mean? Like, just him coming downhill from half court is like, what are you supposed to do with that? When he takes one dribble and picks up the ball from half court, what are you supposed to do with that? I watched, like you talked about that finals run he made that solidified him as the best player in the NBA. I watched his knee bend backwards in a crescent moon. Like, he was supposed to tear every ligament in his knee on that play. and he hobbled for a
just
little
I
bit.
got a little sore, missed like a game or two against.
Yeah,
Atlanta.
missed man, he's missed a half. Missed the second half of that game. Was back 2 days later with a 40-point triple-double, and the series was over. So it's just he's just superhuman amongst that. But he's not the only one doing superhuman crazy performances. Donovan Mitchell in a single performance, all of these are stretches, but Donovan Mitchell in a singular performance, 71 points, 10 assists, and a big win for the Cavs. That's the only explosion we've seen of Donovan Mitchell. But the out the gate crazy dominant play, keeping the Cavs atop the Eastern Conference, Donovan Mitchell hasn't gone anywhere.
If when you score 71 points, I know it's like easy math, but it's crazy to think about. And then the next game, you only score 9, you still average 40 points over a 2-game stretch. So he did. That is an explosion in itself.
And understandable that you get 9 points the next game. I'm a little tired. legs a little tired.
He did have 20. I think Matt was just saying.
No. I'm just saying.
And we got a text actually. It was either the night of or after.
I was going to say this too.
Of our guy Kyle Sirik. Obviously, Kyle, having been with us while Donovan Mitchell was going through the playoffs with the Utah Jazz, we've had a lot of debates whether he can be the number one guy on a true title contender. I don't know if I consider the Cavaliers a true title contender. What I can say is that I believe Donovan Mitchell has now put himself really, it's like there's no putting the toothpaste back in the tube once you score 70, right? It's like I'm here. Like I am one of the best players in the league.
And absent of that, all of his scoring stats are not just up, but way up this year. Just from efficiency to scoring. So scoring 29, his previous high is 26.4. But percentage-wise, in Utah for his career, he shot 44.1. Last year, he shot 44.8. This year, he's at 48.7. From 3, he was 36% three-point shooter in Utah. This year, he's 40.7. Free throws, even he's career high in free throws. Remember, he's 26 years old. Just because you play in the playoffs every year with Utah doesn't mean you're automatically 5 years older. Which we kind of got the perception because he was playing from the first year, and he's 26 years old. He's younger than the guy who started in the college football national championship. So
that is ridiculous. Stetson Bennett is no younger than 35 years old, by the way. No younger than 30 years old. We can table that for a different mention. But no, I'm glad because we have to give Kyle a little pseudo victory lap because he called the text. It said verbatim that night, in quotes, "get you a bucket guy" after the 71-point performance, because that was Kyle's quote. He said Donovan Mitchell is a get you a bucket guy when you need it. He got 71 of them, so I can't really dispute it. I hear what you're saying, Jake, that you can't unsee what we've seen, right? You score 70 points, then it puts you in a category of scoring in the NBA that very, very few can touch. But you know what? This 70 points is kind of synonymous to me. And he did it much younger in his career. But Devin Booker's 70. Devin Booker's 70 . Right?
Yeah, but they got blown out in that game.
They did. They weren't even close.
Donovan Mitchell carried his team to the win.
To a win, right.
A close win
but
overtime.
I'm talking about the aftermath of it. So, and Devin Booker was his second, third year in the league, much younger in the league. But did that make us think that, he's going to be the best player on a title team?
No, but he did end up being the best player on the title team. You can put him up there with CP.
I was about to say, it's kind of like a 1A, 1B to CP, right? You know what I mean?
That's right. There's
they have returns, but to me, it didn't. I don't know if it leaped Donovan Mitchell into that.
You don't think it changed anything?
I don't know.
I think
there's something about it that still doesn't. It's not. I'm not there with it yet. I don't know what it is.
For me, the 70 just solidified. For me, it's the whole season. If he was putting up Utah, if he had this game last year in Utah with the Utah numbers he had, they're really good, but not quite there. But it's been basically half a season. Like, this is who he's been this year, and was like his crowning performance, proving that he is, in any other year, like a prime MVP candidate, and he's like probably like 9th.
Yeah, but this, to make him a prime MVP candidate and to make the Cavs legit title contenders, like I would love to see Donovan Mitchell doing all this and not and see Darius Garland's production numbers not take a hit, and see Karis LeVert's numbers in production not take a hit. And I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but Darius Garland was an all-star last year, and I hear no all-star talk.
He's not going to be an all-star.
But you know what I mean? He's not going to, and I know that. Doesn't mean he's not going to play. I know what he is, and I know that also doesn't mean that I'm shocked that he's taking kind of a backseat to Donovan Mitchell for a little bit.
Last year, Darius Garland averaged 21.7, 8.6 assists. This year, he's averaging 21.4, 7.8 assists. He's doing fine.
Never mind. He's doing
and he's
fine.
still not going to make the All-Star.
No, everyone. Everyone else added.
Everyone else is going up. Yeah, that's what it is.
Their average, and he just stayed the same.
And he just stayed the same.
So kind of like in a way, he declined by 3 points because he didn't keep up with like the curve.
Well, and here's the thing. The inflation of basketball. And here's the thing. That climb in 3 points may have happened if Donovan Mitchell's not a part of the Cavs. And I'm sure he'd gladly take those 3 points off of his average for Donovan Mitchell coming in and making the Cavs a better team. But in terms of individual performance, like, I would love to see Darius Garland still continue to ascend as Donovan Mitchell is there, not watch Darius Garland hit a ceiling or plateau as Donovan Mitchell is taking off with the Cavs. So maybe that's the kind of the next step in the evolution of either the Cavs or Donovan Mitchell as a number one or as a leader. Is now, how do I get my number 2 to, up his play like I'm upping my
Remember,
play?
they're 26 and 23. They've got
got room to do it. I'm not saying he's not going to do it. That's what I'm looking forward to seeing. Or can I see it? That might be the thing that makes me go, Donovan Mitchell is the best player on a title contending team. If and when I see that. And I don't think that's a standard. I don't think that's a standard that he can't live up to or that I shouldn't hold a basketball player to. Because, like, we had to watch Giannis make Chris Middleton better and make his team around him better for them to win a championship. We had to watch LeBron make his team better before they win championships. Like, it's, it happens. Players gotta your best player has to elevate those around him. But we'll move on to the next big scoring outputs, and that's Joel Embiid, your guy, man. 35 plus points 35 plus points in 11 of the last 14 games in December. He was going crazy without Tyrese Maxey, a little bit without James Harden. You want to talk about putting the team on his back. And B did that for a little bit, especially in the beginning of December without his running mates. He's out right now, but before he went out, he was going on a tear that was, having everyone put him right in the middle of all these MVP conversations.
I don't think he'll be out for too long. To me, like, he is the second leading scorer in the NBA behind Luka, and he is anchoring one of the best defenses in the NBA. Like, it's a really easy, like, the fact that he might not be an all-star starter makes me want to, like, throw a riot. Like, it cannot happen. He is way too good to not be an all-star starter this year. And I know the Durant, the Tatum, and the Giannis cases, but I don't care. Embiid is not the one you can leave out.
Who's the one you can leave out?
It's either Tatum or Durant.
Yeah, I mean, like, honestly, here's the thing with that type of stuff. I almost don't want him to get it as a fan because, in my opinion, that makes him more motivated. I don't know. As an biased Sixers fan, I would rather him get less minutes in the game, be really pissed about it, and then just, like, destroy the next 10 teams he plays after the break. That'd be cool.
And to not get hurt in the game.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
He'll play like real, like, he's gonna play like the center once, like, the whoever the coach is.
What's
like,
the real lineups?
Like,
yeah,
the closing lineup, he'll be in there.
Yeah, the closing quarter.
Yeah. All you have to know about Embiid, Jokic, who's the best big. I think it was either last year or the first year they did the Elam ending in the All-Star game, in a game comprised of the league's best players. They went to Joel Embiid like he
Pretty
was in college,
yeah.
the only guy on the floor who could score. They fed him the ball. The best players on earth. All 5 of them on that team, feeding him.
Eddie gave him buckets. Eddie gave Bron a dream shake and gave him buckets.
So I think, I mean, look, we've talked about it a ton. If I'm taking a big, you were for, and you know what? Maybe he's not first. Maybe you could convince me into taking Giannis if I really strip away all of my emotional attachment. But like true centers, he is by far, in my opinion, the clear pick for number 1 center in the league. So
yeah,
good for him on his scoring outburst.
Yeah, for sure, and good for him for being number 1 in Jake's book. That's a big accomplishment.
DeAndre Jordan has more first-team All-NBAs in his career than Joel Embiid.
Yeah, you shouldn't have said that, man.
Hurts, don't it?
Like it's his Joel Embiid's accolades are so like he's never been first-team All-NBA. He's never been an MVP. Like it's so like it's from like a basketball historian point of view. Like when I look back at like when I evaluate players and I didn't watch, like, well, who was first team All NBA and who was second team All NBA? The fact that Jokic gets it over him and Embiid every year, it's just like this. People are good. Like I'm gonna have like my like nephews like say, well, Jokic was actually better than Embiid because we'll have like me and my brother's brain and we'll like flip out.
And you'll see Matt on the news.
No, you do not
for hurting a 12-year-old boy because he couldn't because of the outrage of them saying that. And that you make a good point because now that I think about it, that has the opportunity to be one of the biggest, like, I don't even know how to phrase it, misconceptions or oversights in NBA or, I'm just going to say NBA history is if Embiid continues this and doesn't finish with an first team All NBA, an MVP, defensive player of the one of those individual accolades. If we look back in the history books and Embiid doesn't have one of those, that's going to be one of the, I don't know, like one of the biggest rewrites we have to do in the history of the NBA. Like for us to have seen all of this dominance and to not have it show in the history books for 30, 40 years down the line for people to reference it and to see it, like to really look back into this span of 10 years in the NBA for it to be perceived that Jokic dominated over Embiid and it like that's crazy.
There were people the year the Jazz and the Sixers were both the 1 seed. There were people who voted Rudy Gobert ahead of Embiid for all NBA rankings. Not a lot, but there were a few. That is such.
There's always going to be
he's so underappreciated, and I need because I just think Doc and the Sixers just are destined to just screw up in the playoffs. I need him to get these personal accolades.
Well, why? Look, Matt, you are gloom and dooming this episode.
Yeah. He's traumatized, dog. He's
traumatizing me.
He's hurt. No, he's been that way for a little bit though. I've noticed.
The thing that
you bring it down. Like even the Eagles too. You've been bringing it down.
Like when we blew out the Raptors to clinch the series, and we got like 20 minutes of happiness. Like, oh, we blew them out on the road. Yeah, we can do this. We're playing Miami. It's like, oh, broken face Embiid because Siakam elbowed him when it was a blowout already, and it's just like he'll miss. And then it's just like, oh, we're just never getting out of the second round. That's just the way.
Welcome to Philadelphia, Matt. Welcome to Philadelphia, buddy.
It's rough.
Let's get y'all out this rabbit hole.
Yeah, please.
Luka Doncic. Over his last 5 games, averaging 43.4, 12 rebounds, and 9.8 assists. Like I said, over these last 5 games, his 5-game stretch has been crazy. Giannis's 5-game stretch has been crazy. Little bit of different outcomes in terms of wins and losses. Not as many outcomes or not as many resulting in W's for Luka's case, which has been the tail of the tape, the story, right? And then now I've heard that they're going to be potentially shopping Christian Wood, who was supposed to be.
They're on a 7-game win streak.
Dallas. Okay, so, but then I heard they're potentially shopping Christian Wood, who was supposed to be their huge, acquisition and piece next to Luka. So the Mavs don't always have it figured out. Matt just pointed out they are on a 7-game win streak right now. So these 5 games, this scoring outburst for Luka is kind of translating into these wins for Dallas, which is been good for them. So kind of what does this say for Luka? Where does this put him in the MVP race? How does this kind of frame Luka's season?
The most impressive thing from Luka this year, surprisingly, is not his 60-20-10 game, which would be the best accomplishment of his career for 99.9% of NBA players. But there's this chart that shows how the quality looks for your 3-pointers versus your percentage. And his percentage is like roughly middle of the league average, but his quality is by far the worst quality shots in the NBA from 3.
Yeah,
he just hounded, and he makes it. So can you imagine if they're able to develop perimeter talent around him in Dallas where he gets decent looks? I don't want to just brag, but like I've never been more right about a draft than knowing Luka was going to be a superstar. And he is everything that's exciting about offensive basketball. Other than like athleticism, but he makes crazy shots, he makes crazy passes, and he has just a great swagger about him. And he loves to dominate, and he is. And
I think
he is I think God, it's so tough. Everyone else is so good. Like he's the best player in the NBA, except he's not because there's Giannis and Embiid. It's like, but like he's
to me
so good.
To me, of all the scorers in the league, Luka is the most fun for me to watch. He's the most entertaining when he scores and when he gets going. Is like truly Luka moves at one speed, and I think it's so impressive and incredible to see that no matter who's on him, how many people are on him, the defenses he sees, the looks, the angles, it doesn't matter. Luka's going to get to his spot at his pace and get his shot off. And I just to see a guy with a combination of that, kind of size, power, skill, but not speed. Like usually when you're putting all those accolades together of a great basketball player, speed is somewhere in there. Like the combination of size, strength, speed, and you know what I mean?
Or
but
at
you
least
say
like quickness, right?
Quickness, right? You say all of that about Luka, except the speed and quickness. But he still gets around you. He still gets to his spot. It's incredible to see. And he said it twice. He said first when he came in as a 17-year-old, he said I think it's harder to score. It's been harder to score internationally than it will be in the NBA. And then he said it last year on JJ Redick's podcast again, doubled down on it and said absolutely. And he said mainly because of the rules, we'll get to it, but just because the nature of defenses and the nature of how things move in Europe, he's like it's harder to score in Europe than it is in the NBA.
They probably laugh at the NBA game now with how it's played. Just really, really quick, Matt, for Luka. I hear you. Like, I think there are better players. He's the most skilled player in the NBA. Used to be Steph Curry.
Say that.
I think between Curry, Harden, I think KD and Kyrie are two guys who are very, very, very skilled. All those guys very skilled. But like you said, he doesn't have the blow-by speed. He doesn't have the quickness. I mean, he does have a quick first step, but it's not it's not athleticism that he wins on. And what we have been complaining about, or I have been complaining about thus far, is that the super athletic guys are going to dominate because there's freedom of movement, no more take fouls. Luka doesn't really game the system with his athleticism. He's averaging 34, 9, and 9 off of getting people onto his hip and making the right read every time.
And I don't want to Russell Westbrookate, but if it was Russell Westbrook, he'd have 3 less points, but one more rebound and assist averaging right now because Luka doesn't triple-double hunt. He likes triple-doubles, but he doesn't game the system to force assists. He plays the game the way it's like LeBron. LeBron could have had way more triple-doubles, but LeBron always made the right basketball play, and Luka just does a similar thing. Just an incredible Luka stat. Luka has as many games with more than 40 points than he does with less than 30 points. 8. He has 8 games this year with 40 or more, and he has 8 games with less than 30.
He should be the MVP then. That's sickening. Yeah, he scores. He. In terms of value, you talk about most value. You talk about your next guy being Christian Wood or Spencer Dinwiddie. He's pretty valuable, man.
I mean, look, to me, it's all it is where the Mavs finish in seeding. And right now, the Mavs are the 5th seed. If the Mavs can, or are they the 5th seed or the 4th seed? Right now, the Mavs are the 4th seed.
The West is just a bunch.
The West is crazy right now. The Kings are the 5th seed, so like the West is a little stupid. The
top 10
all the way down.
The top 11 teams are within 7 games.
Yeah, and the Suns have slipped all the way down. So the West is a little mess right now. But if the Mavs finish a 4 seed or higher, Luka will be the MVP. And Luka continues playing like this, Luka will get the MVP.
I agree completely.
And in the same token, if the Celtics finish with the 1 seed and Jason Tatum finishes
Tatum cannot be the MVP. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the team might be too good. That was what I was going to say.
You can't just be like a great season on the best team to
best player, best team, man.
No,
that formula will never fail. That formula will never. It may not always hit, but you're
in the running.
You're in the running if you're on the best player on the best team, man. You go finish top 3. That's what
Jokic won the MVP as a 6th seed when the Sixers were the 1 seed. Like, and but Giannis finished top 3, best player on the best team. No, I'm saying when the Sixers were the 1 seed 2 years ago, Embiid was the best player on the best team, and they gave it to the guy who was the 6th seed in the West.
Yeah, but the logic doesn't apply if you're a Sixer. If you're on the Sixers, we know this.
So like, Tatum's been great, but the Luka, the Embiid, and they're not dominating the East. They're like a game ahead of Milwaukee and Brooklyn, and 2.5 up on the Sixers. There's a top 5 that's all like close. If the Celtics were like 35 and like 7 or whatever, like I could see that, but like they're not like having like this runaway best team in the NBA season. They're just like a top level team that's like a game or 2 better than the other teams. And if the seedings are that close, in my opinion, then you can't just say it's best player, best team. Like you have to say, Embiid's clearly having a better season than Tatum.
The Celtics slid a little bit. I don't want to get into a Celtics debate, to be honest, but the Celtics slid a little bit. But if the Celtics stayed as dominant as they were in the beginning of December, that 11-2, 10-2 start they had to December, 10-1 start, whatever they had to December, and Tatum was playing the same, if they get back to that and it averages out through the rest of the season, don't be surprised if Jason Tatum's the MVP. You just can't be. You just can't be. But the last one we'll get to is Jokic talking about MVPs. Because he got, just like Donovan Mitchell, had just one big breakout game, 40, 27, and 10 in mid-December against Charlotte. A crazy game. But overall, is just having another one of those Jokic seasons. And that 40, 27, and 10 game is just in the midst of all this dominance again on the offensive level. So I got one person here who's pro Jokic. I got one person here who's very, very anti-Jokic.
Smite Jokic from the NBA.
I will go to the pro Jokic side first, so Matt can tell me how good of a season he's having before Jake tries to Thanos, snap him into oblivion. So Matt,
without getting into the advanced stats, yeah, I've said for a couple of years now, I think Jokic is the best offensive player in basketball. I think he's still the best offensive player in basketball. Like, he's averaging 25.6 points per game, and he's shooting 62% from the field. And it's not like he doesn't shoot threes. He doesn't shoot a lot. He shoots 2.5 per game. But he is 61% is such an incredible number when you're a high volume scorer at 25.6. And the fact that he also dishes out 9.5 assists with basically 3-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, he's just the most dominant offensive player in the league. But again, it's like the defense is just what keeps him below everyone else. And it's just people lie that his defense is actually good when it's not. Like, it's okay. And shout out to Jokic. The Nuggets are having their best season since he's been with the team. I don't know if they're still the 1 seed, but they're the 1 seed for a decent amount of time this year. They are currently the 1 seed tied with the Grizzlies. Yep. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So like the team success is finally filling in. And like if the Nuggets finish the 1 seed, like they're going to give him the MVP, and it'll be egregious because it'll be his 3rd in a row and his 3rd overall. But as a singular season this year would not be egregious for him to win the MVP if the Nuggets finish the top seed.
3 straight MVPs is but Jake, before you go, that's why you have to prepare yourself for it. Because to me, to win, if you're going to win and repeat as MVP from the year before, you have to do something in that repeat year that you didn't do the previous year. And it's got to be over the whole season. You know what I mean? You have to break a record. You have to up your points per game. You have to do, you know what I mean? Something's got to majorly improve. You can't just be continued the same dominant player. And the biggest thing that everyone talks about when it comes to MVPs is how well your team is, team success. That's the biggest thing in public perception that Jokic could do to secure his 3rd straight MVP is have the Nuggets be the 1 seed. Look, I know he's got some players back healthy. I know the rest of the Western Conference is kind of taking a little bit of hit with injuries and teams being bad and what have you. But if Jokic gets that last thing that people are talking about, and that's the team success, the only thing that really people could knock him for getting the MVPs in the past, and he didn't just improve it, man. He got the best seed in his conference. He will get That'll be it right there, Jake. Like you got to just prepare yourself for that, man.
I saw a tweet today from 538 saying like Jokic is being slept on. His MVP case is being slept on. Okay, he's number 1 in the NBA MVP ladder, and he's a 2-time MVP. Yeah, he's really being slept on. People don't know about Nikola Jokic. They don't talk enough about him. So I want to make something clear before I go into this. He is put him up there with Luka. Take your pick. Anyone in the NBA, put him up there offensively. He is as good or better than them. He is an offensive juggernaut. And if he was a power forward or a small forward and did these numbers, I would be a massive fan. The Bucks got to stop here, though. As the biggest guy on the court, let me just level set with everyone who might not be super familiar with basketball. This has changed. We talk the game's evolving. As the biggest guy on the court, when you hold your hands up in the air, you're the closest, you're the tallest to block the basket. We call that a rim protector generally. Mm-hmm. Not every tall guy's a rim protector. Is there any reason why Nikola Jokic, being the center, the anchor, supposed of the defense, is allowing 50.4% defensive field goal percentage against and averaging below, I think he is 0.6 blocks? Like, people love to pour on the offensive statistics, and it's great because they're big numbers, and it's what draws in fans. I get it. What draws in fans is not what wins games. Period. Full stop. So when you go and say, look at him, he made this pass across his body. Yeah, guess what? A chest pass that the guy gets and puts in is just as valuable. Okay? So when we talk about Nikola Jokic, everyone seems to turn their eyes off when the ball goes down that end of the court because he's already done something amazing on the offensive end. And he's going to be flamed out in the second round unless Jamal Murray or MPJ carries him like they did the last time when he made the Eastern Conference Finals. I've never seen someone achieve so little and get as many accolades on a large scale as Nikola Jokic has. Like, it truly is, and especially because of what we talk about with Embiid. And it's not just Embiid. Like you mentioned, Tatum, Luka, Devin Booker, Trey. We could go down the list of NBA young guys who deserve some form of accolades. This is being held up by Nikola Jokic. The incessant need to give him stats, give him accolades because of these stats that mean nothing. It really, as a basketball purist, it really breaks my heart to see. But what are you going to do? Yeah. This is the NBA now. TikTok. Oh, he's doing the TikTok dance. It's good for him, man. You know what? Good for him. Good. Hey, enjoy your second round exit. We'll be on the couch. Same round, man.
Yeah. No, you were, there was more in there than I thought. Like that was genuine.
Just wait to
passion.
see. And they give him a third one.
Yeah, no,
it really might be bad. Like actually bad. Like not funny bad, like really bad.
No, funny. No, what's the TikTok sound? Not funny weird or not haha weird. Bad weird. Like
yeah, that's me. That'll be me.
I want to see Embiid and Jokic commercial together just to see what Jake's brain does.
He's fine. Like I said, if he was a power forward, I wouldn't care. Just call someone else, center, rim protector, big, whatever. He plays the same game that Luka or LeBron play. They are the hub on offense. Everything goes through them. Awesome. You're a great player.
If you really want to go insane, you go like deep into Nuggets Twitter and like do like win share for 48, proving that he's like a top 5 player of all time.
Yeah, he's better than Jordan. I'm sure.
So, you see like crazy stuff.
Have we ever seen? Because when you have a superstar, that's so unnecessary to me. Like, have we ever seen the need to do that for another star? Because usually when you have a star and they're deficient on in some way, you're quick to point it out. When LeBron can't make free throws, you point it out. When Trae Young can't play defense, you point it out. But for everyone else, for Jokic, you want to like phantom give it, as if I'm not watching what I'm watching. As if you're trying to tell me you're trying to tell me that Jokic is the second best defensive player in the league. Like I'm not watching what I'm watching.
James, I think we're a rare breed. We're a rare breed, fellas.
Jokic has back-to-back second straight year where he's leading the league in defensive box plus minus. That means box plus minus needs a big overhaul.
It means you shoot it to the moon. Yeah, it means you shoot it to the moon. And no one is saying he's bad on. Jake's saying he's bad on defense. But like, man, I think you said like he's okay.
Remember when Sam Bradford broke the NFL record for completion percentage in a season, and everyone's like, "Oh wait, completion percentage isn't good anymore."
Yeah, reevaluate.
And we all agree. We're all like, "Yep, we got
reevaluate.
We need a lot more context."
As you
Sam Bradford
should
set the record, and we all like we need
as
to do
you
the same,
should,
because Jokic as a defender is the same as Sam Bradford as a quarterback.
Mm.
Wow,
that's introspective. That's deep.
A word. Let's take a minute. Let's take a minute to really process what Matt just dropped on us right now. Let's take a minute.
Below average. He's below average. Only Jokic doesn't have like glass arms when he plays glass knees when he plays defense. He stays healthy.
Yeah, that's true. No, there's just no need to minimize what Jokic does on the offensive end, but there's no need to overinflate what he does on the defensive end. He can be okay. He can be an okay defender.
He can there are moments where he has nice plays and he can be okay, but overall he's below average.
Okay defenders have good plays here and there. Yeah. That's what makes you okay. You know what I mean? If you take those out, you'd be a bad defender. You'd be. You know what I mean?
But before we move to At the Buzzer, I just want to end with this. There are 44 players this year averaging over 20 points per game, up from 27 last year. I ask you, the listener, this question. Why do we care about the best offensive player when Kelly Oubre is averaging over 20 points per game? Clearly, offense is flawed, and really we should be overvaluing the guys who are actually good on defense because of how hard it is. I leave you with that question.
And on that note, this has been a very, very introspective episode of Straight Facts.
So, okay, great. This is a great, actually, I thought I remembered it right. The Warriors won the finals last year. The Celtics didn't crack 100 in games 4, 5, and 6 when the Warriors came back from 2-1 down. That's defense. That just proves the value of great defense.
No, I think the conference finals in both senses last year proved that defense wins championships. In the Eastern Conference Finals, you had two teams who got there because of their defense. The Heat barely could score. The Heat barely knew how to could barely even score the basketball. They were beating teams because they were holding them to under 90. And then the Warriors proved way too much for Dallas, not on the offensive end, is because once they hunkered down on the defensive end and clamped everybody but Luka, there was nothing anybody could do. I mean, everybody looked pedestrian in that series. The best teams are still the best defensive teams in the NBA. Like, scoring can be up. Individual scoring can be up. But I think the best teams will still be the most physical, the best rebounding, and the best defensively sound teams. You look at all the champions the past, decade, all but those Warriors teams, really. All those teams were 1, 2, 3, 4, somewhere in the top defensive teams in the NBA. So just like they don't let them tell you the mid range is dead, don't let them tell you defense is dead either. You just got, you know what I mean? You just got to look for it in different ways now. But that's all the time we have for this episode of Straight Facts. It was a good one, an entertaining one, an informative one. Love when we have these types of episodes. But as always, we can get some shots up at the buzzer before we ride out. And before we do,
Matt, you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah, I can't hear. Can you hear James?
I can't hear James.
All right. Are you good with just having us ride it out, Matt?
Yeah.
All right. So James just had a little bit of an internet issue, but he was going to bring up the Damar Hamlin story. If you are listening to this podcast, I'm going to go ahead and assume that you were privy to what went on Monday. Obviously, a very, very, very scary situation with Bills cornerback or defensive back Damar Hamlin going down and suffering a cardiac arrest on the field. They have canceled the game, no contest. And obviously there will be some ramifications from that, which we'll talk about next week. But really this week, I think as stated earlier in the episode, just want to give a shout out to all of the doctors in that area and the people on the field where, I've worked jobs doing football games before, obviously not with medical stuff, but operate game day operations. And I'm sure they drilled this thinking, well, this will never happen. And so I just want to say that I am incredibly thankful that there were people there who knew the protocol, executed the protocol. And I think, at least from what I've seen in a lot of PR statements that came out today, that is a big reason as to why Hamlin has a lot of the motor function and brain function that he currently does has. I'll kick it over to you, Matt, after this. I'll just say it is, I think, sometimes lost how fleeting life can be. Like, we're and not to get too deep, but like, you're watching a football game, the very last thing, and it's a violent game, the last thing you expect is to see something like that. I still love the game of football. I probably always will, regardless of the injuries that happen from it, but it is incredibly unfortunate. The one thing I will say is that this is an injury that happens from what I've read, very randomly. It's a 20 millisecond interval that it has to happen in the heartbeat. So happens in baseball, happens hockey, any chest contusion sport. So just an incredibly unfortunate situation. Very glad to hear that he's starting to look upwards here.
Yeah, unfortunately for me, it wasn't that surprising. Just because like I don't really talk about it a lot, not because I don't want to, just because I was like little. When I was like 8 years old, when I was 9 years old, I had a neighborhood friend who was like 2 years older than me, and basically I wasn't playing youth football. Like I wasn't playing like just backyard football with him that day, but I'd like the week before, and his best friend tackled him, and his heart stopped, and he died, and he was 11. I was like, so I've always known like it's like a really like and I knew about the 20-second millisecond interval. Like I remember learning all that, and it's just he also my friend also had like a heart condition that wasn't diagnosed too, which made it more frequent that happened. But it's just so great that the doctors are able to get to them that quickly, and the amount of times that we've seen doctors come to the rescue at sporting events is honestly their success rate seems to be really immaculate. Whether it's Christian Eriksen at the Euros last summer, whether it's the I don't remember when it was when the guy got hit with the skate in the neck, the goalie, and they had to plug that up. Like it's incredible how well trained these people are, and how important, how great they are. Like in sports, we talk about performance under pressure. Like like that's like the biggest you can possibly imagine, and it's the fact that they get it right so well just incredible plaudits to them and their training.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, this will be an ongoing storyline. I think a lot of people at this point are pretty invested in DeMar's, health and well-being. So it's great to hear that he's doing better. And honestly, a pretty good way to end off this show for all the time that we have today. It was a very good one. Always love to talk some NBA. And another shout out to the Up On Game Network. Go check them out wherever you find your podcasts. They have some great shows along with yours truly, Straight Facts here. But for James Jackson, my guy Stat Matt Robinson, I'm Jake Galley, and these have been the facts.
Straight up.